Please welcome Cynthia Lummis for a conversation with Michelle Peacock, Global Head of Public Policy at Waymo. The discussion will be moderated by Emma Anderson, California Tech Editor at POLITICO.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Good morning. And I'm Emma Anderson, as mentioned, the California Tech Editor at POLITICO. Thank you so much, Senator Lummis and Waymo's Michelle Peacock, for joining me today. Really excited to talk about this technology, autonomous vehicles, the process of regulating the sector, and what the future holds for this ever-evolving technology. I just flew in from San Francisco myself, where Waymos have really become a fixture of the city, ferrying people around, and it's expanding a lot throughout California and other states as well. Members of the audience may have seen Waymo around DC. I believe you all are expanding here soon. Is that right,
yes.
Michelle?
Yes, we have cars doing some initial driving, mapping, collecting data, and starting to build a map. We hope to have service here in the end of this year or early next year.
And Senator Lummis, what's your experience? I'm curious, have you been in a Waymo yourself?
I have in San Francisco. And as you point out, you can't go 2 blocks in San Francisco without seeing a Waymo. So I had a chance to ride in one there, and it's very impressive technology. You feel very safe. You feel like the car is looking 360 degrees around you for anything that could come at it. It was a great experience.
And I'll have to say that the senator has the distinction of being the first United States senator to take a ride in a Waymo.
Is that right?
How about that?
Well, what do you think? Could you see yourself taking a Waymo to the Hill, for example, or what does that look like?
Absolutely. I think one of the fun things about getting to ride in it in San Francisco in a whole variety of traffic situations was that you can see that you're completely safe in any traffic situation, and I didn't hesitate for a minute. I'd do it again, and I'd take it regularly because it just has that sense of freedom for you.
And Michelle, I'm curious, maybe you can talk a little bit more about how we got here. I mean, Google launched the first driverless cars about a decade ago. What are your thoughts on how adoption has gone so far a decade later? Is it where you thought it would be?
You know, I think the exciting thing about Waymo is the combination of the rapidity with which it feels like we have accelerated the business, and at the same time, the level of deliberateness that we have approached expanding the business. Today, you can use your phone to summon a Waymo to give you a ride in Phoenix, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin, Texas. We just talked about Washington, D.C., but later this year, Atlanta will come online, and then Miami in a few months as well. And across the last 5 years, we have now driven 50 million miles in fully autonomous mode. We've carried passengers on 10 million trips, and we're doing about 1 million trips a month, which is a big increase over where we started from just 5 years ago. We think it's an incredible platform for people. It can serve a wide variety of transportation needs, fill some gaps, gives people a sense of freedom, safety, and we're really excited about the next chapter.
You talk about safety. Senator Lummis, you just introduced legislation on AVs, and that was a component of it. Can you tell us what is the role of government here with the future of AVs? And specifically, what's the role of federal government versus state government? Do they each play a part?
Yeah, great question. There are standards that require vehicles to have a steering wheel, brakes, mirrors that are configured a certain way, seats that are configured a certain way. And with a driverless vehicle, not all of those standards are necessary. You don't need a steering wheel, a brake pad. There are way more mirrors and cameras in a Waymo than there is in a standard vehicle. The seats don't need to be configured the same. So there were recommendations in 2016 that we update standards in anticipation of autonomous vehicles. Those regulations have not been updated. So there's two parts to the legislation I have. One is to take the recommendations from 2016 and update them to current. And then the second part is to create a roadmap going forward so that autonomous automobiles can be incorporated into every community and sold on a commercial basis.
Michelle, what's your experience at Waymo, though, with, because you've been engaging with local and federal lawmakers, of course, on this issue. What is the role that each of them play, state versus federal?
It's unusual. This is an industry and a space where all jurisdictions, all levels of government have some regulatory oversight over the space, international, local, state, federal. We see in the United States today, 29 states have passed a framework or enabling legislation that create the framework within which an AV business can operate. That means there's 21 that don't have that. So about half of the country is not ready for this, which is why we are also supportive of the federal AV framework that's being discussed right now. We think it will set some national standards. It will allow a couple of things. One, it will allow businesses to have regulatory certainty in order to make the investments. This is an expensive industry, and big investments that are needed to bring those to life. And two, it will keep the United States at the forefront. Today is the leader in autonomous vehicles, but other countries like China are, breathing down our necks, and we need to make sure that we maintain that place, that pole position.
And just speaking a little bit more about state versus federal regulation, I'm curious what you each think about this proposal in Congress for a moratorium on state AI laws for 10 years. Could that impact AVs? What does that look like?
Well, in our legislation, we have asked the DOT to work with NIST and to advise on whether there should be federal preemption. There is issues of insurance, and all of these are outstanding issues that probably will come to play in a patchwork way if the states do their own thing. So we want some recommendations from the Department of Transportation about things like federal preemption. And the AI legislation you mentioned takes the approach of certainly federal preemption for a period of time for 10 years.
Right. Michelle, what are your thoughts on this process and the idea of federal preemption?
I think there's a role for the federal government and state governments, especially as it regards autonomous vehicles. There's a role for both, and we think that the first step of putting this energy behind this federal AV framework, that should be the focus of Congress. There's urgency there, both from a global competitiveness standpoint, as well as a safety standpoint. I mean, so many cities have these really ambitious Vision Zero goals, for example. And I'm sure there are some who are meeting them, but a lot of them are not. And we have the ability to deploy technology that can make an impact on that today. And we should be running hard at encouraging growth of that sector in the United States.
Related to that is also, you were talking about going into different states, local areas. One of those issues that's been coming up is public sentiment. There's still, when we poll people, there's still some skepticism about new technologies and AI and self-driving. What is the role, maybe Senator Lummis, you could talk about this, with government in addressing public trust? Is there a role there with trying to address public trust or public sentiment about this emerging technology?
Yeah, I don't think that government has earned a fabulous reputation for being the gold standard for trustworthiness. So I think it's better for the private sector to provide opportunities like Waymo is doing to ride in these vehicles and to be the the proof is in the pudding. You ride in these vehicles for a while, and your trust level goes way up. And so I think you're going to see more private sector conversion, if you will, of people from being hesitant about these technologies to trusting them. I know that happened to me when I rode in a Waymo. And for people my age, sort of the baby boom generation, the grandmas of the world, you know, we look at that and go, man, I'm going to be able to, after they take my driver's license away and I don't have the freedom to drive myself anymore, I'm still going to be able to get around. I'm still going to be able to have a vehicle take me to the grocery store when I'm living by myself. And it's going to provide for baby boomers who might be extremely hesitant about this technology the ability to see that this is going to give them way more freedom as an older individual than they would ever have if they were still behind the wheel. It's going to reduce drunk driving deaths. It's going to reduce, I have friends who have dementia, Alzheimer's, who got behind the wheel and became disoriented and died. I mean, this has happened in the last year. That is going to be eliminated. You're going to have the disabled have an expanded freedom because of driverless vehicles. So usually it's the young people that embrace new technologies easily. I think baby boomers are going to embrace this technology because we're just going to be able to see, my gosh, even when I'm too old to have a driver's license, my family can know, my children, my grandchildren can know that I'm good on my own. My car can drive me to the grocery store, to the drugstore, to the doctor's office. It's going to be transformative for people my age, more so, in fact, than people of any age.
Interesting. I mean, my mother died 8 years ago. She was disabled before she died, and she had to go to the doctor all the time. She couldn't get there. One of us had to drive her to the doctor. And we used to say, Mom, you know, let us call an Uber for you. Let me call a taxi. And she would say, no, I don't know who that is. I am a disabled old woman. That guy could rob me. He could beat me. And what am I supposed to do? And I think about her every day. I mean, it is, right now our platform is a Jaguar, and my mother was very fancy, so she would have loved to have been driven around in a Jaguar. But she would have run hard at the opportunity to have independence and freedom, both of those things. And I think those are really, really important. And as far as public sentiment goes, I think the senator made a great point about getting people in the cars. Everyone, policymakers, elected officials, government officials, regulators, the public. The experience, it changes you. And it's a crazy emotional journey that you go on, because the first 20 seconds is borderline terrifying because there's no one driving the car. And then you goes really quickly to kind of boring because it's a car that is driving the speed limit and following the rules of the road and signaling before changing lanes and coming to a complete stop. It becomes almost a boring ride. And then you know that you're sold the minute you're like, well, maybe I should pull out my phone and start checking my email, right? Then you know that the acceptance piece has landed. Then that happens in about 70 seconds. It's crazy.
It is.
And another concern we have heard people, more critical voices voice, is about the potential for job loss from new technologies. That often comes up. What is your sort of message to those groups that have those concerns, I guess, from Waymo? And I'm also curious, Senator Lummis, if you hear this coming from your constituents at all, or concerns.
You know, when I pulled into your yard in the San Francisco area, there was someone working on every single vehicle because they had completed their time on the road. And they needed to be serviced and checked and cleaned, and so there were a whole array of people working at the Waymo yard, and so it showed that there's still a tremendous role for human beings in Waymo world. Manufacturing these vehicles in the United States will create a whole new vehicle manufacturing job force, and the jobs will be within the same industry, but just slightly different jobs. There may be less need for taxis, but nobody complained when Uber came along to replace taxis, and then this is just the next step. And so there will be more jobs, not less jobs. They just won't be the same jobs. And you know, this is true also with 18-wheelers. So when we were in San Francisco visiting you, we got to see a tractor trailer that is driverless. And it is being tested between Fort Worth and El Paso, Texas. But there is a driver. It's just the driver's not in the cab. The driver is at home or at the office and has to be monitoring that vehicle on a screen as if they were in the vehicle every second that it's being driven. So the great thing for people with commercial driver's licenses and automatic driving automated tractor trailers is they can sleep in their own beds at night. They can see their own families. They can have dinner with their children, and yet they have still driven that truck a full workday. So no job loss there. So it's when you first start thinking about it, you think, oh my gosh, this is going to eliminate a lot of jobs. And when you dive in a little deeper, you realize that's not true at all.
I guess at the same time, Uber and Lyft have seen some of that pushback. There were local efforts to restrict some of their operations and to regulate gig workers. I'm curious if Waymo has seen similar kind of concerns, or how you all are navigating that in different places.
Well, I think the senator's right. There is an opportunity to really work on workforce development projects that introduce a whole new sector to America's workforce. We've started just the beginning of that process with a couple of programs, one in New York and one in Los Angeles with junior colleges, just introducing the idea of what does it mean to work in the AV industry? What are the kinds of tasks that are needed and jobs that can be created from the industry? That is for the existing cars that are on the road. The manufacturing is great too. We have an AV factory in Arizona that turns these cars into autonomous vehicles, and that is an amazing technological achievement to have in this country. And these cars the factory is so modern, they manufacture the AV, and then the AV drives itself out of the factory and right into service, which is astonishing. It's an incredible technology. That factory needs a lot of workers to manufacture the car into an AV.
And our laws need to be updated, our regulations need to be updated, so those cars can be created from scratch without a steering wheel, without a brake pad, without mirrors that are specifically focused in a direction that aren't helpful. Seat orientation can change. And so these are the kind of things that government can help with. But the way that this is deployed in the private sector is going to be up to the imagination of the companies that are innovating in this space.
Speaking of the imagination of the companies, one question I feel like I have to ask as a Californian, because we hear a lot about this sort of a little bit of a rivalry between California and Texas, and I know you're operating in both places. We've seen tech companies like Tesla move some operations to Texas as well. Is Texas really going to be the new California in terms of the technology being developed there, in terms of what is able to be deployed there?
I think the the industry is going to grow so much that this debate will be almost meaningless. I mean, California has shown that while it has a pretty dramatic and strict regulatory regime, that a company like Waymo has started our business there and has managed to navigate and grow that. We look to Texas, it has a different approach. At the end of the day, both states and all states just want the ability to stop a bad actor from operating. Both of the states have that capability. How they get there is a little bit different, but they both have that ability. We want that too, right? We want to make sure that companies that shouldn't be carrying passengers or operating on the road are not, because they haven't met a minimum safety standard. That will come with federal legislation where we'll be able to establish that. That will be very helpful. And I think that there's a lot of places where competition can flourish across this country, regardless, even outside of California and Texas.
What about Wyoming? What does that look like for Wyoming?
Wyoming has the smallest population in the nation. So when we look at the California-Texas thing, we think the intellectual capital, the code writers, the people who are developing the computer that is going to essentially be running these automated vehicles will probably still be in the Palo Alto area. The people who are building the vehicles, actually deploying the entire technology to something that has roadworthy tires and is ready to go, is probably going to be more common in Texas just because of the different employment bases. In Wyoming, we need a vehicle that can drive on black ice, that can weather tremendous winds, and so these are going to be things that will be a good test base for these vehicles. But there is so much distance between our communities. Wyoming is a small town with long streets, and I mean long streets.
Right.
It takes me. It's over 400 miles between my ranch and my farm, and I drive it all the time. And that's why we have so many people fall asleep at the wheel in Wyoming. Common problem. These people are not drunk. They are just falling asleep because of the mundanity of driving for hours on end to get from Cheyenne to Cody or Star Valley to Sundance. And they'll be able now to watch movies, in their vehicle, occasionally look out, and so we're going to be a test ground for extreme driving conditions.
How does those kinds of considerations in different places like that, how does that affect then how, or if at all, how Waymo is thinking about the technology and having to navigate these different spaces?
I mean, eventually we will be, in Wyoming. Eventually we'll get there. I think, the trajectory of our company started in Arizona. It made sense. It had a favorable regulatory climate. It had an easy to navigate community. The speeds of the roads didn't go above 45 miles an hour, well-marked roads. And when you start an AV business, that's what you want to look for. You want to set yourself up for success. Since then, we went from there to San Francisco, arguably one of the most complex and dense communities to navigate. Narrow streets, lots of pedestrians, lots of vulnerable road users, and have done a spectacular job there. As we turn our attention to more northern climates where the freezing conditions also present a challenge for some of the technology, when the tech is ready, we will be able to serve those communities too. So I think we're on the path. We want to make sure that every corner of this country eventually will have this kind of service.
I've seen on a windy Interstate 25, the back tires of 18-wheelers lift off the ground. And when the trucker slows down, it'll settle back down on the road. If the trucker doesn't slow down, the whole vehicle flips, and it happens a lot. And one of the nice things about a vehicle that can have the patience, because the driver's not in the cab, to keep going and just go 30 or 40 miles an hour on an interstate or less and just keep going and going, they'll be able to deliver loads in a more timely manner and get them there safely, because there's not a human being there with a schedule that requires them to take a break after a certain number of hours. Some of our Department of Labor regulations on drivers in the trucking industry are rigid, and so they have to push it before they time out in order to get their load to its intended destination. If you've got a driverless vehicle that can drive way into the night, going half the speed, and still get that load to its intended destination in a timely manner and safely, you're going to have fewer tractor trailer flips. It's going to be a safer driving environment, safer, much safer. I think that insurance companies should be on board with this. So there's so many different factors you start to think of as soon as you sit in one of your vehicles, things that I never thought of before that trip to visit you all in California. And it's part of what inspired me to reintroduce this bill. And a bill that would update the current regs was filed in 2015 by now Majority Leader John Thune and Gary Peters. And the fun thing is, so I filed this, and Senator Thune, who's the Majority Leader, was excited because this is the first piece of legislation to move this forward since he introduced it the first time in 2015. So when the Majority Leader of the Senate's excited about a piece of legislation that he's not carrying, I'm thinking maybe we've got a shot.
And that trip, that Waymo experience, is what prompted you to file this legislation?
Absolutely. That was an absolutely eye-opening experience. So thank you for that.
No, it is incredible, and I think just to echo what you said about the opportunity created in the trucking space. Think about economic development, speeding goods to market, making sure they get there safely.
Yep.
That's a job creation story too.
It is.
Right?
Yep.
Before we have to wrap up, unfortunately, this has been a great conversation. I want to hear from each of you, what is the future? What does that look like to you? Senator Lummis, is it going to be this kind of Tesla vision of self-driving cars everywhere across America? What does the future of America's roads look like in 10, 20, 30 years?
Okay, well, in my world, there's still going to be ranchers and farmers behind a truck checking cows, because that's something that I don't think is in your Waymo.
Not yet.
So you still drive around in a vehicle and look for, pink eye or red nose or, hoof problems. That requires a human being behind a truck on a ranch, looking at cattle. So that's still, and there are jobs like that all over the country. It has nothing to do with cows, but there are things that require human observation from a vehicle. But in terms of just transportation, getting from one place to the next, this is the future. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm really excited about it for people my age, because it's going to extend our ability to be free and live independently for much longer. It's also, I think, going to make urban driving environments safer, because the car is looking out for the passenger the pedestrian who's not paying attention. And in so many ways, I think that vehicle-related injuries and deaths are going to drop dramatically, and we're all going to be safer, whether we're a pedestrian or riding in a vehicle that drives itself.
And just to take one step further, we know our data shows, our safety research shows that in these communities where we've operated across the 50 million miles of driving. We've reduced injury-causing collisions by 81%, and that number goes higher even for pedestrians and cyclists and motorcyclists. We have data that backs up what you're saying about the safety component here, and that is the world that I would love to see. We'll see Waymo expand with ride-hailing. Eventually, we'll have more cars on the road that will be accessible financially to Americans that have self-driving capabilities. I think it's hard to say exactly what that's going to shape up to be. In the meantime, we have got this my incredible company support from the senator. We're really excited about the future.
If there is a future where it's all self-driving everywhere, when would that be? How long does it take to get there?
I don't know. I could make a prediction and I'll probably be wrong. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I don't have any idea, because I was pretty surprised by the state of the current technology, both for tractor-trailer combinations and driverless taxi cabs when I went to California. And of course, we have vehicles now that can drive themselves or be driven by a person. I have two staffers, one of them sitting right there, who has one of those vehicles that can drive itself or be driven by them. So that will kind of be the transition, just the way that EVs matched with gasoline engines are the future of the fuel that works best. That opportunity to be in electric mode and gasoline mode at different times. I think that may be the most logical way that most of us transition, where we have the ability to drive or be driven. But right now, we don't even have a federal legislative framework that will allow a vehicle to be on the road on a commercial basis that lacks a steering wheel, a brake pad, the mirrors, the vehicle configuration. But if you see the models, the mock-ups, they're going to be fabulous. They're going to change buses. They're going to change local shuttles. Thank you. It's going to, and when that comes, I think then that'll leapfrog the transition for people to say, I not only want to take the shuttle from the parking lot to the Kansas City Chiefs game, I want to get in my vehicle and have it drive me from the parking lot to my house. Yeah.
Very exciting things ahead then, it sounds like. I think that's all the time we have for right now. Thank you both so much. It's been such a great, lively discussion. And thank you all for coming. If you're interested in reading more about Waymo's automated vehicles, please read California Decoded. It's a new newsletter for Politico Pros. Thank you all again for coming, and enjoy the Expo.